Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Our old friend, Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Powell, spooked the markets today with talk about raising the peak interest rates beyond what they talked about in their last couple of press conferences. I like to call them press conferences because I think that they're more about getting the spokespeople in front of the camera than they are about economics anymore. And when he talked earlier today, it really sent a wrench into the markets. You look at the when I'm recording this with a couple hours left of trading, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 569 points. S&P 500 is down 62 points. NASDAQ 100 down 139. The Russell 2000 down 23. Crude oil is down 3.33%. Brent, that's the West Texas Intermediate. Brent is down 3%. Gasoline down 2.75. Heating oil down 3.18. Natural gas is actually up, but that's been getting punished for several months now. It's up 3.11%. Gold has got hammered pretty good. It's down $35 an ounce, down 1.91%. Silver's down 4.54%. Platinum down 4.69%. Copper down 2.76%. Palladium down 3.41%. And yet the US dollar, as is often the case, is up 1.16%. So definitely spooked the markets, whether you're looking at Wall Street stocks or the commodities complex. And I think that they're hell-bent to over-tighten and cause serious problems. These interest rates are a big problem for the real estate market. They're a big problem for car sales, which are two big components of the economy. They're tough on consumers buying anything. They're already stretched to the hilt on with the credit cards, and a lot of those are paying 19% interest rates. The inverted yield curves have never been as inverted as they are now, which suggests that there's a big correction, a big economic slowdown coming. And that goes into the case that I'm making. I think as the Federal Reserve over-tightens and causes some serious problems, they're going to cause enough problems that before the end of 2023, they'll be talking about lowering the interest rates. And in fact, I believe they will lower the interest rates. Now, they're not talking anything about that. None of the Wall Street experts are talking about that, but that's because they tend to get wrapped up in what's happening and right in front of their noses. But I think that, as Mom used to say, you're focusing on your nose to spite your face. And the reality is that the interest rates are troublesome for a large part of the economy. Now I'm going to get into some market movers that, as we can see here, why I follow the price of the US dollar so closely is because that's the price that most investors in the commodity space pay attention to, is what are commodity prices doing against the US dollar. And as you can see in this chart, the US dollar started correcting back in late September, had a very serious drop. It had a death cross in January, had more weakness in January, but then in February and now into March, it's had quite a significant rally. It's still trading well below the 200-day moving average, and I think that this action is an overreaction to the idea that the Federal Reserve might be going back to 0.5% and raising interest rates quite dramatically more, I really don't think that they have it in their ability to raise it much more because they're going to have a lot of problems with the economy. So the further they raise it, the sooner that we're going to start see them going into their next rounds of quantitative easing. And again, I think that this recent action here is an overbought condition in a bear market that started back here. Of course, you can have these short-term rallies. Here we had a bullish rally in the price of gold or the price of the US dollar, and it had serious counter trend moves. And I think that that's all this is a counter trend move. Okay, so let's go look a little closer at the gold price. And as you can see, and this is why I follow the gold price, the US dollar so closely, is as the US dollar is gaining strength, there's pressure on the gold price. Just like when the US dollar was getting under pressure, there was strong upwards movement in the price of gold that really started back in November. And if you look at these lows here, 1811 and up here at 19 and change, it's given back a good portion of that of the gain. But I just as I think the US dollar is overbought, I think that gold is oversold. And actually, it's been rallying somewhat. Now, this is a yesterday's close, so it doesn't represent today, but it seems to be gaining support here at this 1813 level. And I think that that's sort of a crucial level. On the way up, it was sort of resistance. Then it broke through that. Now that resistance is becoming support. And again, I think it's very oversold here. So I think that this creates some great opportunities. And I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas here in a few minutes when I talk about the companies that I follow the closest. And as you can see with silver, it's even weaker. It's now trading right at the 200-day moving average. The 50-day has rolled over. But the question is, can it stay above that 200-day? And because it's so oversold here, I certainly believe it will. Let's take a look at copper. Copper has actually been somewhat of a shining light as the US dollar has recently been gaining strength. Yes, it has come off somewhat, but it's still trading above the 50-day moving average and well above the 200-day moving average. And I think the reason for that is in an article that I was reading. Let me just pull it up here. Where did it go? It was talking about shortage of metals for EVs is rising up the agenda in automaker C-suites. So there was a big conference in Florida last week called the BMO Mining Conference and Crucial Metals. And then a few days later was the start this weekend of the Prospectors and Developers Annual Conference in Toronto. And these are big mining conferences. The PDAC in Toronto is one of the largest mining conferences in the world. And a lot of mining people converge. And I've been talking to some of my friends that are at the show, and they said there's a lot of optimism. The attendance is excellent. And what they're surprised by is a couple of things. One, that the major mining companies have a lot of their representatives out on the floor looking at projects. And that's kind of an extension of what we're seeing with the automakers. For the first time in forever, they are sending a lot of their representatives to these mining conferences. And it's no wonder, you look at McEwen Mining, they did a deal not long ago that got the financing of by Stellantis, which is a a pretty serious car maker to try and secure copper that they're going to need into the future. And that's kind of a wave that I think not a lot of people are really understanding. The supply chains of many metals that are needed for the green energy revolution, whether it's electric vehicles, and electrification of other things, is going to require a lot of copper. You look at the United States on its own, and there you've got a very aging infrastructure that really doesn't have the capabilities to handle this electric car revolution. Then you look at the emerging economies of the world, and they need a lot of copper to keep growing and modernizing their economies. And there's just a lot of demand for not just copper, but other metals that are, you look at zinc, they need that for the solar power and other uses. And lithium, there's not enough lithium to meet all this electric vehicle revolution. And I actually heard Robert Friedland talking at the BMO conference about just how dramatic the funding is going to be needed to fund all of these demands that are coming. My phone's ringing off the hook there. The demands that are coming for all the various different metals, and a lot of them suffer from long periods of underinvestment to find new mines and develop new mines. And the world needs those new mines for everything. Everything in your life is affected by mining. So we need more of those mines coming online. We need more being found. We need more money in exploration and new mine development. A lot of the mining companies are relying on old mines, and you look going back to copper, you look at a lot of the major mines out there, and they're getting very old, many decades, sometimes over 100 years of production, and they cannot keep high grading and keep going deeper and deeper for lower grades to keep supplying what is needed in the world for all of the demand that's coming for all these metals. And that's why you're seeing things like at the PDAC conference, where electric vehicle company or car makers are showing up, and the major mining companies are on the hunt for new projects, juniors out there that have good projects. And another thing that I've noticed recently, I have never seen a time in my career, and I've been at this for nearly 30 years, where major mining companies are so eager to get involved with the junior space, and they're doing the most junior-friendly deals that I've ever seen in my career. Usually the poor little junior gets beat up by the major if they want to do a joint venture on their project to explore and develop it. Nowadays, that's not the case, and I think these are all big waves that are coming that won't change direction. And I think that this is a great time in the metals space. And days like today, when old Fed Chairman Powell there gives a pummeling to the mining or the metals, and by extension, an even bigger pummeling to the mining companies, that's a good time for investors to take advantage. And so now I want to talk about my key group of companies that I follow. A lot of my content I'm putting out these days on my either on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or Rocks and Stocks News. You do a Google search or a YouTube search for that, or here on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. So yesterday I put something out about the big story at the PDAC, which was this electric vehicle or car makers and other companies showing up at these conferences. Over the weekend, I talked about i-80 Gold making a big news on their bonanza grade CRDs in Eureka, Nevada. This was a special coverage of my own company, Advanced Lithium, that we talked about, a news release of Advanced Lithium being in preliminary talks with Mexico's lithium firm, Lithium. Here's McEwen Copper. They got a big investment from a car maker and Newton, a Rio Tinto Rio Tinto venture. That raised them over $60 million for their McEwen Copper, which is part of McEwen Mining. Here's the news release that we put out from Advanced Lithium, that we've entered discussions with Mexico's national lithium company, Lithium to form a joint venture. Here's the i-80 Gold and Paycore have bonanza grade CRDs, and i-80 Gold makes offer to buy Paycore Minerals. Here's an interview I did with the guy, the Mike Blady, who's the CEO of Golden Ridge. They've got a really good story in Newfoundland that's in close proximity to newfound gold. I really like this story because they're on the same structural trend, and they have the same kind of a story in that newfound gold, which has about an $800 million valuation, found all of their discoveries in close proximity to the Appleton Fault. And they found them below at the surface, a bunch of gold occurrences that were tightly packed right around that Appleton Fault. And Golden Ridge has the same story, just a little further south, a bunch of gold occurrences right where they drilled a significant amount of drill holes recently. This was a note to paid subscribers. If you're interested in that, I do brief notes to my paid subscribers to give them heads up on some of the work that I do. This was an interview with Christina McCarthy, who's the CEO of Paycore, and we talked about i-80 Gold making an offer to take over Paycore Minerals. Here's one of my In the News shows, Athena Gold. I'm really excited about this company. They're in Nevada. This is an interview that I did with them. I really like that story a lot. So that's just a rundown. One thing I think you can notice by that rundown is a lot of my peers in the reporting on this sector are kind of pulling in their horns because they're scared of the challenges in the market. And I believe that these challenges are great opportunities. And that's why I'm constantly putting out content, is because I think that there's some great opportunities out there for investors to make a lot of money. And I think that I put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, in that when things are challenging, I'm putting out a lot of content, and it's because I believe that this is a phenomenal opportunity where we've got the start of a important bull market for the price of many metals. I'm not the only one. Ross Beatty at the Vancouver Resource Investor Conference recently mentioned that he has never seen in his career where all the metals, all the elements of the periodic table have never been in as bullish of a situation as what he sees now. And I couldn't agree more. Okay, so another place where I keep a lot of my top picks is if you look at this additional pages here on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com, I've got what I call my Rocks and Stocks Index. So in here, I keep track of all my sponsors and all my picks, and it's a great place for you to check out when you want to see what I'm up to as far as the companies. Now, I start this page out with Nevada stocks. And the reason I do that is I'm a big bull on Nevada and a great group of companies that are involved in Nevada. One of those top companies is i-80 Gold. i-80 Gold has a pretty remarkable group of assets in Nevada. They're focused totally on Nevada. And in Nevada, they've got one world-class project at their Granite Creek project. What makes this Granite Creek so impressive to me is that they've drilled a bunch in their what they call their South Pacific zone. And at their South Pacific zone, they've hit very thick zone of high grade with excellent continuity. And it's wide open as you go to the north and to the depth. As you go to the north, you keep following the rock packages and the structure that these structures are cracks in the earth. You've heard me talk about that a lot. The fluids that bring the metals need a path of least resistance, and these cracks in the earth are what they follow. And then as they get close to surface, they make their way into certain rock packages. And so the rock packages and the structures are important. And as you follow the rock packages and the structures north of Granite Creek, on the other side of their claims is a 25 million ounce gold deposit. So they are definitely right in the heart of elephant country for gold mines and gold deposits. And it looks like they have an elephant in the making. It's still wide open as you go to the north. But then also interesting is as they go deeper into the South Pacific zone, the grade gets higher and higher. So this is easily a multi-million ounce. I would think over a 5 million ounce target, maybe even in the 5 to 10 or above 10 million ounce target. And a lot of companies will say that kind of stuff, but in reality, it's not real. In the case of what i-80 Gold has at Granite Creek, I think it is definitely real. It's about the rock packages. It's about those cracks in the earth. It's about the fact that there's a 25 million ounce gold deposit to their immediate north. All of these things combined is why it looks, and of course the grade and the thickness and the continuity of the high grade gold. But Granite Creek they started 2022 with Granite Creek being their #1 project. And then around halfway through the year, they started getting some stuff out of their Ruby Hill project that just blew the top off actually changed the priority, and Granite Creek became the second best project, and Ruby Hill became the #1 project. Now, why Ruby Hill is so exciting is on the west side of the old Archimedes pit, which was an oxide gold mine, they have found what is called the Ruby Deeps deposit. And that has excellent continuity of very good grades for something that would be bulk underground mined. As you get a little higher in the system, there's the 426 zone, and they're very happy that they're seeing more oxide gold in that 426 zone than they anticipated. And it looks like that could be some near-term production that they could process right on the Ruby Hill project. Later on, the Ruby Deeps would be developed at their refractory plant that they're working to bring back into full production. But in the interim, they've got to deal with the Nevada Gold mining, which is a combination of Newmont and Barrick, that they can process their refractory ore there over the next couple of years as they bring their own facility on full steam ahead. So and then they've also got some gold mineralization underneath. So it looks like kind of like a crescent shape or the C shape of what they have at these gold zones. But then it gets even better because at the immediate south of that pit, they've got this bonanza grade CRD with very high grades of silver, lead, zinc, and gold. And collectively, if you look at the value of the in situ metals value of that rock, you're looking at anything from $1,000 per ton to over $5,000 per ton. It's just phenomenally good mineralization. And they've got 3 zones of CRD at the south, and it's open as they go to the further south of that Archimedes pit. And over on the east side, they got a skarn deposit, and these are all part of a continuum of a CRD, you have to have a skarn, and below that you have a porphyry. Well, at the Ruby Hill, you go right underneath the Archimedes pit, and there's a big geophysical anomaly that looks like it could be a porphyry, the big heat engine for these mineralizations that make their way into the CRD and the skarn in the continuum of these geological models. And Tyler Hill recently mentioned, he's their VP Exploration, he recently mentioned that when you have high-grade CRDs and a porphyry associated, that usually that porphyry is a high-grade copper and gold porphyry. And so they've got that. And then as they go to the immediate south of where they've made this bonanza CRD discoveries, they've got this big geophysical anomaly. And recently they drilled their first hole into that. I did an interview with Ewan Downey that you can find on YouTube or at my on my Substack on the front page there. And he really couldn't hold back his enthusiasm for what they're seeing in that first hole into this big geophysical anomaly. And I think why they're so excited about that is the geophysical anomalies associated with where they've hit the CRD so far, the Bonanza CRD, are quite not very big. But this geophysical anomaly dwarfs them. And I think that, well, it's Ewan Downey's favorite target. It's my favorite target, and I think it's going to prove to be the plumbing or the source of where that CRD came from, and that could be associated with the geophysical anomaly of the porphyry. So then, if you go to the immediate south of that is Paycore Minerals, where they have this exceptional CRD discovery as well. And now i-80 Gold has made an offer to take over Paycore. I think it's a very attractive deal for Paycore because, as I talked about earlier, you got Granite Creek, you got Ruby Hill, you've got the McCoy Cove project, you've got a pipeline of other projects, you've got the processing facilities, and they get shares. The Paycore shareholders will end up owning about 10% of the shares in i-80 Gold, which gives those Paycore shareholders a big position in the i-80 Gold. Okay, so now on Paycore's, what makes this really interesting is that here you've got the geophysical anomaly. To the immediate north, you have the Bonanza zone, the Bonanza CRDs. And then over here, you've got the discovery of a CRD that Paycore has. And then right in between that and the geophysical anomaly, there was a historical hole that was drilled that suggests that that CRD mineralization keeps going, and it's going right in the direction of that big geophysical anomaly. So that geophysical anomaly has the potential of being what caused the deposit of the CRD discovery and deposit at on Paycore's ground and also on i-80's ground, and it's all contained with the i-80 ground. So the Paycore shareholders get access to being involved with that as well in this takeover offer. And another reason that I think it's a very good deal for the Paycore shareholders is that the Paycore, in the Lassonde curve, there's two exciting times: the discovery spike, then there's a long development discount window, and then another spike when you go into production. By doing this deal, they don't have to go through that development discount window, and they're getting close to being in the development discount window because they're talking about updating. They were before the takeover, but they were talking about updating their resource. So that puts them, that's the start of the development discount window. So I think in the short term, Paycore Minerals shareholders do better owning i-80 Gold share, and also in the long term. And that's why I think both of these companies are sponsors of my shows or my reports. And I'm pretty happy to see this deal happening for both companies. Golden Lake Exploration is also a sponsor, and I'm really excited about what they have because it goes i-80 Gold, Paycore, and Golden Lake Exploration. And now Golden Lake Exploration drilled into a bonanza grade CRD as well. They haven't advanced it nearly as much as i-80 Gold and Paycore, but I think that they've got a great future drilling the known bonanza grade CRD that they have. Plus, they have a bunch of historical mining that was done on the property of CRDs. And they recently announced that they had done a bunch of surface sampling, and they have a whole bunch more targets related to where this old mining was of a big geochem anomalies. So I think that Golden Lake has the chance to find, expand on a known bonanza grade CRD and the potential to find more, and yet they have a very tiny valuation. Okay, so next is so you've got i-80 Gold, then you've got to their immediate south Paycore, to their immediate south Golden Lake Exploration, and to their immediate south is Timberline Resources. Now, Timberline Resources has a big land package, the largest land package in this Eureka camp. And they've been really focused on on expanding on a known resource on the property. And what is really exciting is as they follow that, as they expand and move to the east, all the rock packages are pointing to the east like this. And all the faulting is pointing to the east. And as you go to the east, there's this big geophysical anomaly that I think is going to be the source of where the gold mineralization in their resources come from. And I'm very optimistic that that could be a company maker for the company. But in addition to that, right beside Paycore that is now being taken over, they have a big property up there called the New York Canyon Project. And at New York Canyon, there was a lot of historical mining of CRDs there. And then they did a bunch of surface sampling, and they've got a bunch of high grade kicks of all the metals, like what in the bonanza CRD that i-80 Gold has. It's got the silver, it's got the lead, the zinc, and the gold. And so they're just right in immediate, they're sort of the four horsemen there are i-80 Gold, Paycore, Golden Lake, and then right beside that is the New York Canyon Project and this was this whole little region by Eureka was an important source of important CRD mining camp in Nevada from the 1860s to the 1960s. And then it kind of went out of favor because everybody got in the gold fever over the last 60 years in Nevada, and these CRDs got overlooked. But now with the success that i-80 Gold and Paycore are having, and the potential for more success from Golden Lake and Timberline, I believe that Eureka is becoming the most important exploration camp in Nevada. Okay, let's move down on my list here. Walker River Resources is in the western part of Nevada, in the Walker Lane Trend in western Nevada. They've been at it for a few years now, exploring their Lapon Canyon project. At Lapon Canyon, they have a wide area, about 600 to 700 meters wide on the side of this Lapon Mountain, and then about 800 meters from top to bottom, where they found widespread gold mineralization in their drilling and in the historical mining. And that in itself suggests that there's a big, maybe 2 to 5 million ounce gold target there. So then you look for additional evidence of that, and you can see that there's some key faults that come right down the mountain, and they intersect with another key fault at the bottom in the Lapon Canyon. So then now you've got the plumbing system or the cracks in the earth that allow those fluids carrying gold to make their way to surface. Then you look at their, on the side of the mountain, there's quite intense alteration. So what happens when these fluids carrying the gold come up to surface? They chemically interact with the country rock, and it alters the country rock. And you can see from Google Earth just a massive area of alteration associated with all of this past drilling, all of this past mining, all of the structures. And it's all suggestive that they could be looking at a 2 to 5 million ounce gold target or more. And I'm very bullish on that Lapon Mountain discovery of Walker River Resources. And I think they've got a big discovery on their hands, and more drilling will help uncover how big that could be. But it looks really good to me so far already. So now we're going to move on to Blackrock Silver. And Blackrock Silver has a very exciting project in the Tonopah region of Nevada. This was a big silver mining camp at one time, back about 100 years ago. And they've drilled a resource there, around 50 million ounces of silver, very high grade ounces. And then they've drilled basically double the footprint, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And I think that Tonopah project has all the hallmarks of the early days of Silvercrest Las Chispas mine in Mexico. I think ultimately Las Chispas is a mine that I'm very bullish on. I'm going to be talking about Silvercrest later. But I think that Blackrock could be looking at a silver mine of the future that could be as important as the Las Chispas mine. And I think that it will be mined by a much bigger company. Now, a second asset that's really exciting when it comes to silver and gold is up at their Silver Cloud project. They found a bonanza grades of gold and silver in an epithermal vein system. Now, why that's so important to me is when you find an epithermal vein system, the next thing you have to do is you have to find the boiling zone of that epithermal vein system. There can be zonation of grade along strike and at depth in these epithermal veins. And you have to get into the heart of the system or the boiling zone. Think of it like a boiling pot of water. If you're up above it, you're just going to have bubbles in the boiling water. But if you're in the boiling pot of water, you're getting close to the heat, and that's where you find the boiling zone of an epithermal vein system. And at Silver Cloud, they have found what I think is the boiling zone of an epithermal vein system. And when you do that, you are into a very exciting situation. And they're getting ready to drill that Silver Cloud as they keep doing a bunch more work on their Tonopah project. I really think that this company has a lot of catalysts. I think it's dramatically oversold right now, and plenty of catalysts to see that change quite dramatically. Athena Gold is also in the West Walker Lane trend. They're about 50 miles north of the Bullfrog District, and the Bullfrog District is getting very exciting these days because AngloGold Ashanti went in there and they bought out Corvus Gold. And Corvus is in the Bullfrog District, and they have a open pit heap leach oxide situation, future mine. And then just to the east of that, they found AngloGold Ashanti has found over a 4 million ounce initial resource discovery at the Silicon project. And Athena Gold is in a very exciting situation. Basically, not very many people are following the company right now, but I think that's going to change. And the reason that I say that is almost for their entire project from the west side to the east side, they have a southern fault, which is your crack in the earth that allows those fluids carrying gold to make their way up to surface. Then on the north side of it, they have another fault that goes basically across pretty much all of their project. Right in between those two, you have this big alteration zone. And so when these gold-bearing fluids make their way up these faults, cracks in the earth, they interact with the country rock, and you get chemically, the fluids alter the country rock. And so you can see this big alteration zone almost for 3/4 or more of that corridor between these two faults. Then they drilled sort of in the middle of the alteration zone, and they hit 3 really good holes. When I say really good, what I mean is in oxide deposits, they're mining down to under 0.5 gram per ton. And they were in the 3 holes that they drilled and announced recently, they hit multi-grams, over 10 grams, 15 grams in oxides. And what that means is you can call that bonanza grades for an oxide discovery. And they've got all the indicators that it should get much bigger. And I'm really bullish on Athena Gold and what they have in the western part of Nevada. Okay, so that's all the Nevada plays that I follow. Now, another key theme is orogenic gold explorers. Why I like orogenic gold so much is that a big winner in the mining space over the last decade was Kirkland Lake. And they were a pretty big company before they started mining the Swan Zone at the Fosterville mine. And that's a orogenic gold system. And the result was that they had very low costs of production, very high grades, which made for extremely high margins. And therefore, their stock was one of the best performing gold mining stocks in the sector. I'm talking about miners here, not juniors, miners. They were one of the best performing gold mining companies in the business. And it ultimately led to them getting taken over by a bigger company. So these orogenic gold systems can be company makers. And if it was able to be a company maker for Kirkland Lake, which was already a fairly sizable company, imagine what it can do for a tiny little junior. Well, one of those juniors that I follow is Sokoman Minerals. They're in Newfoundland, and they recently went through a seminal moment for a orogenic gold system. When you start hitting bonanza grades in an orogenic gold system, you know that you are probably sitting on top of a Swan Zone type. I'm not saying it is a Swan Zone. I'm saying it's that kind of a jewelry box zone, if you will. They announced 3 meters of 102 grams per ton of gold. That was part of 10 meters of 42 grams per ton of gold at their 463 zone. What excites me about the 463 zone is that it has a similar zones in that they had their eastern trend that they followed basically from surface. And then when they got to the deepest holes they've ever drilled in that area, bang, they hit this 463 zone, and they're modeling it as either a band or another zone entirely coming in. And that's the kind of cross zoning that you saw at the Swan Zone. So I think that they're at a seminal moment in the exploration of their project called Moosehead in Newfoundland. But another thing that's very exciting is I think they've got a real up-and-coming lithium project, hard rock lithium project, also in Newfoundland. They're starting to get into those 1% and higher grades that you need in these hard rock deposits. And they have a lot of indications that it can get a lot bigger. So you get 2 kicks at the can with Sokoman Minerals. You get a Fosterville Swan Zone story and a lithium story all in one company with a very modest valuation. Galantas Gold is another company that I follow for their orogenic gold systems. And what makes me excited about Galantas Gold is that they've got a series of zones that are tightly packed where they've hit lots of high grade to bonanza grades of gold near surface. So let's say within the first 200 meters. So you've got these 4 or 5 zones that are tightly packed together. Then to the immediate south of that is one of these big, thick cracks in the earth that go down thousands of meters. And that's what makes for these orogenic gold systems. And that is to the immediate south of these tightly packed orogenic gold zones. And I think what's happening here is that as you go deeper, they're going to come together at depth. And as they get deeper, they're going to get higher and higher grades. And as they do that, I think that they're going to find that gold mineralization is associated to that big crack in the earth. They're in the early days of exploring the depth potential of that, but I think they're at a very exciting phase of exploration of an orogenic gold system. And that's why I like Galantas. Now, a new sponsor of my show over the last, just in 2023, is Dynasty Gold. And Dynasty Gold is in Dryden, Ontario. And they hit some spectacular high grades, 1.5 meters at 246 grams per ton of gold, and 3 meters of bonanza grades as well. Another hole hit 3 meters of bonanza grades. A third hole hit 25 meters or 25 grams of high grade, almost an ounce. And these 3 holes, there's also a 4th hole that was historic, and those are all lining up into what I think is one zone. And then below that is an entirely new zone, and parallel to that might be coming towards the dip of this one. But I think that these guys have I think that they've, in the first couple 100 meters from surface, they're into something that reminds me of the Swan Zone at the Fosterville mine. And that's why I like the Dynasty Gold story so much. And I think they're just the first few holes into a jewelry box with a potential jewelry box sitting right underneath it. Amax Exploration is not a sponsor of my show, but I've been following them since they were about a 50-cent stock. They traded as high as $4 after that. They're currently trading about $1.50. I think they're dramatically oversold. What excites me about this project is their high-grade zone. The high-grade zone has outstanding continuity of the high grade from surface down to 1,000 meters. And it's open beyond that. And that's the nature of these orogenic gold systems. Sometimes the juiciest stuff can be under 1,000 meters, but the grade is so high that you can make tons of money. That's what the Red Lake mine in Red Lake, Ontario was made up. They had to go down 1,000 meters to get to that juiciest numbers. And then it continued for another 1,000 meters that made Gold Corp one of the lowest cost producers and one of the best performing gold stocks while they're mining that super high margin gold. And so they've got the high grade zone, then they've got other high grade zones in close proximity to that. And I think that they're all associated with one structural story. And I think that as you go to the east, they have 2 key cracks in the earth that are coming together. And it's not very far to the east of this tightly packed group of high-grade veins or high-grade zones that I think that they're going after the source. And that could blow the top off this project. At the end of the day, I think that Amex has a mine of the future that will be mined by a much bigger company. And I think that they will be taken out by a much bigger company and probably at significant multiples of their current valuation. All righty, let's scroll down here. Base metal stocks. One of my favorite base metal stock is 9 Mile Metals. They're focused in the Bathurst mining camp of New Brunswick. This is one of the most important VMS mining camps in the world. It's the top three, and they're in the early days of exploring, but they're finding some tremendously exciting massive sulfide occurrences with their early drilling. At their 9 Mile Brook target, they found a lens that comes right to surface. It's anywhere from 10 to 20 meters wide, has high grades of all the metals you expect in a VMS, including over 10% copper. So when you get a thick lens like that comes right to surface, it's indicative of what the rest of that system is going to look like. And they've really only pierced it up at the top of the system. So now they've got to go down and find the rest of the system. And when you get a thick intersection of a lens right at surface, it's indicative that there's a big, and when it's high grade, rest of that system. And they're drilling for that right now. Back in the fall, they drilled at their California Lake project, and they found massive sulfides there as well that had excellent grades. Again, they're at the top of the system, and they got to find the rest of the system. So now you're in the best mining camp in the world, and they've got two brand new massive sulfide occurrences. They're 20 kilometers apart. And both of them, they still remains to be found the rest of those systems. And right now they're drilling for that at that 9 Mile Brook lens. And so stay tuned for more news out of 9 Mile Metals. In Mexico is my company, Advanced Lithium. And recently we put out news that Advanced Lithium is in discussions with the Mexican national lithium company called Lithium about creating a joint venture on our lithium deposits in central Mexico. What makes these salars, salt lakes in central Mexico so exciting is that the lithium is not bound up in other minerals. And so you don't need a roaster, and you don't need this complex recovery process in order to get the lithium out of another mineral. It's free of those other minerals and sitting in the clay. And so we have this unique method to get it out of the clay in a patent pending extraction method. And what it comes down to is you put water into the clay, you agitate that, think of it like your washing machine, if you will. And then you put it through an electrical device, and that electrical device separates the water, the lithium and the potassium from the other part, the other stuff in the clay. And then you take that and you put it into an organic compound that separates your lithium and your potassium from the water. What the benefits of this system is that you can recycle the water. So water's not a concern. You can, for the electrical part of it, you can use solar power, because it doesn't need a lot of energy to power that electrical recovery. And then ultimately, you don't need to have acid digestion, so toxic chemicals, to separate the lithium when it's bound up in other minerals. So we have a unique group of lithium, potassium salars in central Mexico. We have a very attractive green mining solution for green energy. And that's why the Lithium, the Mexican national lithium mining company, are talking with us. And stay tuned for more news out of that front. And next up, and we've also got the Sarape Project, which is right, it's 57 square kilometers right beside the Las Chispas mine and Ermitaño in the Sonora area. And these mines are exceptionally high, low cost and high grade. and so therefore high margin mines. At Sarape, there's two big veins, epithermal veins, just like at Las Chispas and Ermitaño. They are one's 5 kilometers long, that's the Sarape vein. One is 2 kilometers long, that's called Chiltepan. They've had limited drilling so far. None of that drilling, I believe, has hit the boiling zone of those epithermal veins. So that's a target. Those two are key targets to look for the boiling zone of those epithermal veins. And then these epithermal veins tend to come in clusters. So there's probably a cluster of epithermal veins that we would explore for as well. So we've got two excellent projects in Mexico, one focused on lithium and potassium, and the other focused on gold and silver. Alrighty. Arctic Star diamonds. Diamonds have to be the most underloved and best contrarian play in the diamond space. Arctic Star is up where two of the major Canadian diamond, well, two of the three, I guess, major Canadian diamond mines were found, Acadie and Diavik. They're finding new kimberlite pipes. These are the geological bodies that host diamond deposits. They've got some excellent diamond indicator minerals. They've got some excellent diamond distribution curve. With the diamond distribution curves they have and the diamond indicator minerals that they have, that are both suggesting that they should have big diamonds and high quality diamonds. And then with the address where they are near Acadie and Diavik, if we were in a hot market for diamonds, Arctic Star would be trading at like 20, 30, 40 times their current valuation. I'm a big fan of diamonds because I spent a good portion of my career in diamond exploration. So that's the diamond story that I follow, Arctic Star Exploration. Okay, now there's a separate group of companies that I call cash-making machines of mines. And what makes these so exciting is they've got low cost of production and high grades of silver and gold, and therefore it makes for high margins. And those are the kind of projects that get the best premiums. But all of these companies I'm going to talk about started their mines in 2022, which was a very difficult time for the whole mining sector. And but I think as we go into a bull market for gold and silver, that these companies with these high margin projects, low cost, high grade, high margins, are going to be some of the best performers in the mining space. So one of those is Silvercrest Metals. Silvercrest, I talked earlier about the Las Chispas mine. What's exciting about this Las Chispas mine is it has in their feasibility study, they had a very low cost of production and high grade, and that means high margins. Now, that feasibility study was done in 2020. And they started commercial production in 2022, November, just a few short months ago. And often what happens in these new mines is the number crunchers in the big institutions, they need to see a couple quarters to compare what the commercial production numbers look like compared to the feasibility numbers. Now, I have no concerns about the grade numbers that were in the feasibility study. The one would be that there's been a lot of inflation since they did that feasibility study, so their cost of production is going to go up. But even if it went up 50%, they'd still be producing silver at under $10 an ounce. And yet you've got silver at over $20 an ounce, and I think going much higher. So there's high margins in that, but proving these numbers up in your early production is what the number crunchers all want to see. So it takes a quarter, 2, 3 quarters for the numbers to sort of be comparable, which creates a tremendous opportunity for investors. Silvercrest is right now trading at the valuation they were when they turned this into full commercial production. So you're still getting it at, earlier I talked about the Lassonde curve. You get a big jump in the exploration success, then a big lull, as it's called the development discount window, as you're doing the economic evaluations and building it, and then there's another big move up. Well, they're still at the end, they're still being priced like at the end of the development discount window, which I think is a phenomenal opportunity for investors. I'm a big fan of Silvercrest Metals. All right, Orla Mining. They're in the state of Zacatecas, Mexico, which is the state of Mexico that I live in. And they've got the Camino Rojo project in Zacatecas state. It was put into commercial production in 2022 during a tough market. The stock has performed very well. It's an oxide mine, so very low cost of production and good margins, and they're making lots of money. And I think they've got a great future ahead of them at Orla Mining. That's another cash-making machine of a mine for you to look at. Mag Silver is also in the state of Zacatecas, Mexico, around the city of Fresnillo. They've got a very exciting situation, and that's just going into full commercial production now. Not too long ago, they announced that they've been plugged into the power grid, the national power grid. So that's going to allow them to get into full commercial production. So it's early in that upswing of the second phase of the Lassonde curve. And I'm a big fan of Mag Silver. I do have one royalty company that I follow, which is Orogen Royalties. And Orogen Royalties has the 2% royalty on the Ermitaño mine in Sonora, Mexico, that is being mined right now by First Majestic. That is their best performing mine in their portfolio. And Orogen Royalties has a 2% royalty on that. Then they've also got a 1% royalty on the Silicon project up in Nevada that's being developed by AngloGold Ashanti. AngloGold Ashanti not too long ago came out with their maiden resource calculation of over 4 million ounces of oxide gold in their maiden resource calculation. It's an exceptionally good project as well. And I think that they've also got a bunch of other great projects that look like they've got future royalties on their hands. And I just listened to Pierre Lassonde the other day, and he said Pierre Lassonde's kind of the granddaddy of the father of the royalty business. And he said that the royalty business model is a beautiful business model. You don't need to run mines. You don't need to run exploration. You just get your royalties and you sit back and collect royalties. And that's what Orogen Royalties kind of story, a young Franco-Nevada, if you will. All righty. I'm just quickly going to go over my tax loss selling season picks. One of those, often at the end of a year, these stocks get beaten down and create a good opportunity for the upcoming year. And that's why I like Blackrock Silver. I talked about them earlier. HighGold Mining has what I think is a 2 to 5 million ounce high-grade gold target in Alaska. I like their potential to do some great things on that project. And also find other projects. And then they've got some projects that they're spinning out into a new company that the shareholders of HighGold Mining will get shares in as well. So I like that story. FireFox Gold's in Finland. Finland is getting very exciting these days. There's some major discoveries and major mining companies involved in Finland. And I like FireFox Gold in Finland. Earlier, I talked about Amax Exploration. Bell Copper is in Arizona. They're drilling a hole right now that they think is targeting the guts of a big porphyry system. Stay tuned for that one. I've just put out an invite to their management to try to do an interview with Bell Copper. And so stay tuned to see an interview by them. Grand Portage, they're also a company with a substantial 1 to 5 million ounce a high-grade gold system that I think will be a future mine. Yet you get that valuation at a very cheap price right now. In February 12 to 2023, I added several new companies to my list. Faraday Copper, they've got a great project down in Arizona. They're finding a lot of high-grade copper. They got a big financing together. They're going to be drilling till the cows come home there. I like that project a lot. Relevant Gold, they're a orogenic gold discovery in Wyoming. At surface, they've already tagged bonanza grades of gold. And again, I think that's a seminal moment for an orogenic gold system. I like their story a lot. Golden Ridge Resources, GLDN, they've got a tiny valuation, but I think I mentioned them earlier. They're right below Newfound Gold's big discoveries in Newfoundland that has them with an $800 million valuation. Golden Ridge has a tiny portion of that, but on the same geological structure, they have all of these gold occurrences, which is exactly the story of what brought Newfound Gold all of their success. And they recently drilled about 20-some holes into that. And I like what I see there for their potential to deliver some excellent results. Emergent Metals is in Quebec. They've been announcing that they've hit visible gold in their recent drilling. They're awaiting those assay results, so stay tuned for that one. Summa Silver is in New Mexico. They've hit a lot of high-grade silver, and I think that this is one of the exciting silver exploration stories that you want to pay attention to. Masivo Silver is in Nevada. They're now a sponsor of my show, actually. I got to move them up into the sponsor section. But they've drilled into what I think is a very exciting project. In Nevada, this part of Nevada, there was mining in the around the Second World War, and then nothing. And they went in and drilled underneath the old mine workings, and the mineralization continues under there. And this was some very high-grade mining that happened close to surface. So I like the Masivo Silver story. I've done some interviews with their management, so go check those out. And then on February 17th, I added Barksdale Resources. They're drilling the extension of the Hermosa project, that the Taylor CRD deposit that Arizona Mining found and got them bought out at $2 billion. Looks like they have the extension of that. They're waiting on permits. It should be a couple months from now. They'll have their permits, and then they'll be off to the races. So there you go. That's my story for today. I'm going to stop share. I think I talked about enough about why I think that the gold and other metals are in such a phenomenal opportunity for investors. And I just gave you my shopping list of companies and some quick notes on why I like them. So do your homework on those. As always, my shows are for information purposes only. They're not buying and selling recommendations. Important for you to do your homework. Speak with your financial advisors to assess whether these fit your criteria. And a great place to do the homework is on my YouTube channel. I've interviewed almost all of these companies. You go to YouTube and look up Rocks and Stocks News. Or you can also find a lot of my interviews over the last year or so and my content or 6 months or so at Substack, rocksandstocks.substack.com. Then go to their websites, look at their news releases, look at their corporate presentations, and be well informed about the companies you're considering. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.